They mocked her the second she entered the auction hall, called her street vendor trash, live-streamed her misery, dumped beer down her dress, like she was tonight's entertainment for bored oil heirs. They threw her out of the VIP lounge, laughed that she couldn't even afford a hubcap, let alone a classic car. Nobody knew. The plain woman they sneered at was about to obliterate the entire event. Until her husband, Alexander Wren, rolled in with the $50 million Bugatti and erased their world with one ice-cold decree. The Avalon Heritage Auto Auction in Texas was a glittering cathedral of wealth, its showroom floor a stage for oil heirs, Wall Street wolves, and old money dynasties to flaunt their vintage car collections under the blinding glare of chandeliers and spotlights. The air buzzed with the clink of champagne flutes, the hum of polished engines, and the smug laughter of the elite, their Armani suits and haute couture gowns a uniform of privilege. Evelyn Hart stepped into this viper's nest, a quiet figure in a simple linen dress worn flats and natural hair falling loosely around her shoulders, her plain face betraying no hint of ambition. She carried a modest clutch, her sole purpose to reclaim the vintage Cadillac her father had dreamed of, but the crowd's eyes raked over her like hyenas spotting a wounded gazelle. The sprawling auction hall, lined with gleaming Ferraris, Jaguars, and Rolls-Royces, was a coliseum for the ultra-rich where status was measured in bitter paddles and generational wealth. Tracy Monroe, the auction floor manager, held court by the grand entrance, her sequined gown and diamond necklace a stark contrast to Evelyn's unadorned presence. Vivian Sterling, the mayor's daughter, strutted nearby, her couture dress shimmering, her TikTok live feed already buzzing with followers. Landon Pierce, an oil scion with a cowboy hat and a Patek Philippe watch, lounged by a 1950s Corvette, his smirk a beacon of entitlement. The guests, a mix of hedge fund titans, tech moguls, and aristocratic collectors, sized Evelyn up with sneers, their whispers a mocking rhythm. Evelyn's gaze, sharp and unyielding, scanned the hall with the precision of a chess grandmaster, but her unassuming demeanor made her invisible to the elite who ruled the auction. To them, she was a nobody, a blemish on their perfect tableau of opulence, and they were determined to crush her before she even reached the bidding floor. As Evelyn lingered near a display of a 1960s Mustang, a group of hedge fund brokers, their tailored vests flashing with monogrammed cufflinks, gathered around her, their laughter a venomous net that silenced the nearby bidders. A portly broker with a gold tie clip stepped forward, his voice a sneering bellow that carried across the showroom. "Well, look at this, our very own street peddler thinking she can admire our cars," he jeered, swirling his bourbon glass. "That linen dress is so drab it's practically a cry for alms in those flats. They're an insult to Avalon's polish. This is a high-roller auction, not a charity car show for nobodies who can't afford a tire. You're lowering the bidding floor just by breathing our air, sweetheart. Why don't you shuffle back to whatever flea market you crawled out of before you ruin our bids?" The brokers roared, some tossing cocktail napkins at her feet, their taunts a relentless barrage. Evelyn adjusted her clutch, her movements precise, her face a mask of stone, but the weight of their scorn pressed like a physical force, the audience's rage surging at the orchestrated public shaming that targeted her admiration and presence. The humiliation began at the grand entrance where Tracy Monroe blocked Evelyn's path, her voice a venomous sneer that carried over the chatter of the elite. "Sweetie, did you lose your way to the flea market?" she drawled, her manicured nails tapping her clipboard with disdain. "This is an invite-only Golden Circle event, not a rummage sale for strays who think they can waltz into Avalon Heritage. That linen dress looks like it was stitched by a blind seamstress, and those flats I've seen better shoes on a street vendor. Honestly, it's almost tragic you thought you could stand among us. This auction's for people who can afford a Bugatti, not a bus ticket. Why don't you scuttle back to whatever trailer park you crawled out of before you embarrass yourself further?" The crowd erupted in laughter, their champagne flutes raised as they leaned in, savoring the sport. Tracy pressed on her smirk, a blade. "Look at you, no paddle, no jewels, like you're here to beg for a backstage pass at a county fair. Get out before we have to fumigate the hall." Evelyn stood motionless, her clutch in hand, her face an unreadable mask, her silence a wall that only fueled their arrogance. Vivian Sterling, the mayor's daughter, escalated the torment, turning the showroom floor into a stage for her cruelty as she live-streamed on TikTok, her voice a saccharine taunt that echoed through the hall. OMG! Y'all look at this lost soul who wandered into Avalon Heritage, she sneered, her phone angled at Evelyn, her followers flooding the chat with laughing emojis. Guess the walking trails led straight into the car auction, huh? Absolutely iconic. That dress is so sad, it's practically begging for a Goodwill donation, and those flats. They're screaming, "I'm broke." This is Texas's most exclusive event, not a soup kitchen for nobodies who think they can crash our vibe. You're lowering the bidding floor just by breathing our air, honey. Why don't you take your tragic little act back to the sticks where you belong before you ruin our aesthetic? The crowd roared their cheers a tidal wave, some tossing olive picks at her feet, their laughter a storm that drowned the auctioneer's gavel. During a break between bids, a clique of socialite wives, their diamond bracelets glinting under the chandeliers, cornered Evelyn near the champagne bar, their laughter a barbed wire fence that drew every eye in the hall. A raven-haired woman in a silk gown leaned in her voice a mocking lilt that carried over the clinking glasses. "Oh, darling, are you here to serve the drinks, or just to gawk at cars you'll never touch?" she sneered, waving her flute at Evelyn. That dress is so pitiful it's practically begging for a Salvation Army pickup, and those flats, they're screaming, "I'm lost." This is Avalon Heritage, where we buy history, not where you come to peddle your sad little dreams. You're ruining our evening just by standing here looking like you wandered in from a soup kitchen. Get out before we have to call security to drag your broke self back to the street. The socialites cackled some flicking olive picks at her, their taunts a storm that drowned the auctioneer's call. Evelyn stood calmly, her clutch in hand, her face impassive, as the bar became a stage for her degradation, the audience's fury peaking at the vicious public assault that mocked her purpose and status. Landon Pierce, the oil scion, took the cruelty to a physical level, striding toward Evelyn with a beer in hand, his voice a mocking bellow that silenced the hall. "Oops, did I ruin your Walmart $2 vintage?" he roared, accidentally dumping his beer onto Evelyn's dress, the amber liquid soaking through the linen as the crowd howled. "Sweetheart, if you don't have a bidder's paddle, why don't you take your charity case home? That dress is so cheap, it's practically screaming food stamps." And those flats. They're an insult to Avalon's floors. This is a high roller auction, not a pawn shop for strays who think they can rub elbows with us. You're lucky we even let you in here looking like you just rolled out of a dive bar. Get out before we have to hose you down with the car wash. The crowd cheered, their glasses raised, some snapping photos of the stain, their laughter a storm that humiliated Evelyn in front of the elite. Landon's cowboy hat tilted back, his smirk a guillotine, as security closed in their hands, poised to drag her out. As Evelyn paused by a velvet rope to check the auction catalog, a group of automotive historians, their bow ties crisp and their egos inflated, surrounded her, their laughter a venomous chorus that silenced the nearby chatter. A bespectacled historian with a pocket watch stepped forward, his voice a sneering roar that carried across the hall. "What's this a tourist thinking? She can read our catalog?" he jeered, snatching the booklet from her hand. "That dress is so cheap it's practically screaming thrift shop, and those flats, they're an insult to Avalon's legacy. This is a collector's auction, not a museum for nobodies who think they can gawk at our treasures. You're dragging down our prestige just by touching our pages. Get back to your sad little life before we have to escort you out with the trash." The historians roared, some tossing cocktail picks at her feet, their taunts a relentless barrage. Evelyn retrieved her clutch, her movements precise, her face a mask of stone as the rope became a stage for her degradation, the audience's fury erupting at the coordinated public assault that targeted her interest and presence. Security dragged Evelyn out of the VIP lounge, their rough hands gripping her arms as the onlookers cackled, turning the auction floor into a coliseum of cruelty. A hedge fund titan, his cufflinks glinting, stood to address the crowd, his voice booming over the music. "Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a round of applause for the audacity of this whatever she is," he sneered, pointing at Evelyn as she was pulled toward the exit. Walking into Avalon Heritage like she belongs, with a dress that looks like it was sewn by a blind tailor and shoes that scream, "I'm broke." This is our sanctuary, not a halfway house for street vendor trash who think they can bid on our cars. Lady, your kind can't afford a hubcap here, let alone the wheels. Let's show her the door before she ruins our bids. The crowd cheered, their bitter paddles raised as security shoved Evelyn toward the parking lot, their taunts a chorus that echoed through the hall. During a high-profile photo op with a 1930s Rolls-Royce, A group of tech billionaires, their smartwatches flashing, noticed Evelyn standing nearby and turned the moment into a cruel spectacle. A bearded billionaire with a velvet blazer addressed the crowd with a smirk, his voice booming over the camera flashes. "Hold the shot. Everyone looks like we've got a gatecrasher in our frame," he jeered, pointing at Evelyn. "That dress is so dull it's practically a cry for help in those flats. They're a crime against Avalon's glamour. This is a legacy auction where we shape the future, not where you come to ruin our photos with your sad little story. You're lucky we even let you near our shot. Go back to your broke life before you photobomb our legacy." The crowd roared, some tossing bottle corks at her, their laughter a storm that drowned the music. Evelyn stepped back, her face impassive, her silence a defiance that went unnoticed as the photo op became a stage for her degradation, the audience's rage boiling over at the high-profile public assault that branded her an outcast. The daily dynamics of the auction were a showcase of elitism, but for Evelyn every moment was a gauntlet of scorn. A tech mogul, his smartwatch glinting, took to leading a mock toast by the bar, his voice booming over the chatter. To Evelyn, the ghost of some forgotten flea market haunting our auction with her dollar store aesthetic, he jeered, raising his champagne. "That dress is so sad it's practically begging for a donation. And those flats, they're a crime against our showroom. This is Avalon Heritage, where we buy history, not where you come to beg for scraps with your pitiful look." Let's give her a round of applause for thinking she could keep up with us. The crowd cheered, some tossing bottle caps at her, their laughter a storm that drowned the auctioneer's call. As Evelyn was escorted toward the parking lot, a group of old money aristocrats, their silk scarves and tailored suits exuding legacy, gathered at the exit. Their laughter, a venomous curtain that silenced the hall's chatter. A silver-haired matriarch with a pearl brooch stepped forward, her voice a sneering lilt that carried over the crowd. "Well, look at this, our very own rag picker thinking she can sully our auction," she sneered, waving her champagne flute. "That dress is so pathetic it's practically begging for a handout, and those flats. They're an insult to Avalon's heritage. This is a dynastic event, not a bazaar for nobodies who think they can gawk at our treasures. You're dragging down our lineage just by breathing our air. Get back to your sad little shack before we have to cleanse the hall of your presence." The aristocrats cackled, some tossing olive picks into the gravel, their taunts a relentless barrage. Evelyn stood by the curb, her clutch in hand, her face a mask of stone as the exit became a stage for her degradation, the audience's rage erupting at the coordinated public assault that targeted her worth and presence. The tension reached a fever pitch as Evelyn, now banished to the parking lot, sat quietly on a curb, her stained dress clinging to her frame, tears hidden behind sunglasses. The crowd's laughter echoed from the hall, their smugness a palpable force that crushed her dignity. The night exploded as the roar of an engine silenced the parking lot, a sleek, ultra-rare Bugatti Type 57, SC Atlantic rolling into view, its $50 million frame gleaming under the streetlights. Alexander Wren, CEO of Wren Motors International, stepped out, his tailored suit, a stark contrast to the chaos flanked by a team of executives in black. His voice sliced through the night like a guillotine, each word a verdict that froze the crowd spilling out from the hall. "Who poured beer on my wife's dress? Who dared throw Mrs. Wren out of an auction funded by my company?" he demanded, his eyes sweeping the crowd, landing on Tracy's ashen face. The socialites gasped, their champagne flutes slipping, their laughter choking into a funeral hush. Tracy stammered, her clipboard trembling, as Vivian's phone dropped, her TikTok live feed crashing. Landon's cowboy hat fell to the ground, his watch, now a pathetic relic. Alexander's smile was nuclear, his presence a storm that owned the floor. Evelyn Hart Wren, chairwoman of Wren Holdings. Strategic Investments, he declared, his voice a thunderclap. As of 10 minutes ago, she is the sole majority owner of Avalon Heritage Auction. The crowd recoiled, their whispers a tide of disbelief as the truth of Evelyn's identity hit like a meteor. As Alexander's Bugatti roared onto the auction floor, he faced the stunned crowd, his tailored suit a storm under the chandeliers, his voice a chilling command that silenced the hall. "You mocked my wife, humiliated her in front of the world's elite, and thought your wealth could shield you," he declared, his eyes sweeping the room, each word a missile. He signaled his team, who distributed legal summons to the antagonists, each document detailing charges of defamation and fraud. "You will kneel and apologize to Evelyn, or my legal division will seize your assets by dawn." he said, his authority a thunderbolt that shattered their arrogance. Tracy's face collapsed, her clipboard trembling as Vivian's social media empire crumbled, her followers fleeing. The crowd watched stunned as the antagonists knelt, their apologies stammered through tears, their shame a public spectacle. Alexander's tablet glowed as he initiated financial audits, the press scribbling furiously, their headlines framing Evelyn as a queen. The audience's satisfaction soared as the antagonist's pride was crushed, their world undone by Alexander's corporate might broadcast across the showroom for all to witness. Evelyn rose from the curb, her stained dress a badge of her endurance, and stepped into the auction hall beside Alexander, her silence a force that suffocated the room. She unfurled an executive order from her clutch, her voice quiet but resonant, each syllable a blade. Effective immediately, the entire auction committee is terminated, she declared, her eyes locking on Tracy's trembling frame. Landon Pierce, Vivian Sterling, you are banned for life from any Wren Holdings affiliated event. Starting today, all of you will sit outside the velvet rope. Consider this a lesson in humility from the woman you thought didn't deserve to breathe your air. The LED wall behind her lit up, displaying the banned list, each name glowing in red. Tracy Vivian Landon, the hedge fund titan, their disgrace broadcast to the crowd. Alexander turned to the hedge fund titan who'd led the mock toast against Evelyn, his gaze a laser that pinned him to the ground. You thought your cufflinks gave you the right to slander my wife, he said, his voice low but resonant, each word a guillotine. Kneel and apologize to Evelyn, or your hedge fund will face a federal investigation by morning. The titan dropped to his knees, his cufflinks forgotten, his voice trembling as he begged forgiveness, the crowd gasping as his shame was laid bare. Alexander's team handed him a cease and desist order detailing his fund's regulatory violations, the press capturing the moment, their headlines framing Evelyn as untouchable. I am Alexander Wren, and Evelyn is the heart of Wren Holdings. He declared his authority a nightmare that obliterated the Titan's status. The bidders who'd cheered him now averted their eyes, their arrogance buried under his power. The audience's satisfaction soared as the Titan's pride was crushed, his legacy undone by Alexander's command, his public reckoning a spectacle on the auction floor. Alexander drove the Bugatti directly onto the auction floor, its engine a low growl that silenced the hall. Evelyn seated beside him, her linen dress a symbol of untouchable mastery. She stepped out, her voice a chilling calm that froze the crowd. This auction is canceled effective immediately due to cultural hygiene violations and subhuman service standards, she declared, her eyes sweeping the room, each word a verdict. Alexander faced the tech mogul who'd toasted Evelyn's misery, his voice a chilling calm that froze the hall. You thought your smartwatch made you invincible, he said, stepping closer, his suit glinting. Apologize to my wife, or your tech empire will be dismantled by nightfall. The mogul complied, his watch dull, his voice shaking as he begged Evelyn's forgiveness, the crowd silent as his shame was exposed. Alexander's tablet flashed as he initiated a corporate takeover, the press documenting the moment, their headlines crowning Evelyn a queen. I am the CEO of Wren Motors and my wife's honor is non-negotiable, he declared, his authority a thunderbolt that shattered the mogul's pride. The collectors who'd raised their glasses now stood frozen, their arrogance buried under his power. The audience's hearts pounded with pride as the mogul's status was obliterated, his public reckoning a testament to Alexander's corporate might served on the showroom floor for all to witness. Tracy's sequined gown clung to her trembling frame, her career obliterated as Vivian's social media empire crashed, her followers abandoning her. Landon's oil fortune couldn't save him, his name blacklisted from every major auction. Evelyn's silence was a terror, her power a nightmare that rewrote Avalon's future, the audience's satisfaction soaring as the elite's pride was crushed on the showroom floor. Alexander paused by the 1930s Rolls-Royce, his presence a storm that silenced the crowd, and addressed the remaining bidders, his voice carrying over the gleaming cars. You laughed at my wife, mocked her dreams, and thought your bitter paddles could shield you, he said, his eyes sweeping the hall, each word a verdict. He signaled his team, who erected a digital screen displaying Wren Holdings' acquisition of every major auction house in Texas, each deed bearing the Wren name. This industry is ours, and your invitations are now under my review, he declared, his authority a nightmare that rewrote the automotive world's future. The crowd gasped, their faces pale, as Tracy and Vivian's names appeared on a public blacklist, their social exile broadcast to all. The press captured every second their reports, spreading Alexander's dominance across the car world, the audience cheering as the antagonist's pride was crushed, their world undone by his command. The bidders who'd mocked Evelyn stood silent, their status nullified by his power, their auction hall now a monument to the Wren's empire. Vivian, her couture dress now a mockery, tried to slip away, but Evelyn's voice stopped her cold. "You thought your TikTok fame gave you the right to livestream my humiliation," she said, stepping closer, her flat silent. "Apologize, or every platform you rely on will blacklist you by dawn." Vivian dropped to her knees, her phone forgotten, her voice trembling as she begged forgiveness, the crowd silent as her shame was exposed. Alexander's team handed her a legal notice detailing her violation of Wren Holdings' media policies, the press capturing the moment. Landon. His cowboy hat, a relic, stood frozen, his bravado gone. Alexander faced him, his eyes locking on the man's watch. "You thought your oil money made you untouchable," he said, his voice low but piercing. "Kneel and apologize to my wife, or your family's leases will be terminated by morning." Landon complied, his hat hitting the ground, his voice shaking as he begged Evelyn's forgiveness, the crowd gasping as his shame was laid bare. Alexander's tablet flashed as he initiated a lease revocation, the press documenting the moment, their headlines framing Evelyn as a queen. Outside the auction hall, as Alexander and Evelyn prepared to leave in the Bugatti, a crowd of collectors and media drawn by the news gathered to pay respects, their eyes wide with awe. "You're the Wren Queen," one said, offering a bow, but Alexander raised a hand, his voice steady. "My wife needs no bows. She needs a world that respects her strength, and I'll ensure it with every resource at my command." He handed a legal notice to a passing bidder who'd tossed corks at Evelyn, his gesture a silent command to face their shame, the bidder trembling as he read his summons. The press, trailing them, broadcast the moment, framing Evelyn as a titan and Alexander as her unyielding shield. Tracy and Landon, watching from the hall's windows, saw their world collapse, their arrogance buried by Alexander's power, their shame a public spectacle. Alexander's authority was a beacon, his lesson a terror that rewrote Texas's car scene, the audience's hearts pounding with pride as the antagonist's downfall went viral. The collectors who'd chanted for Evelyn's humiliation stood frozen, their legacy erased by the Wren's might. The fallout was seismic. Evelyn and Alexander exited the hall, the Bugatti's engine a final roar that silenced the crowd, her stained dress a symbol of untouchable mastery. By morning, the automotive world was ablaze with the story, the banned list trending across social media, hashtags like Wren Queen surging nationwide. Avalon Heritage's reputation tanked its elite status, a punchline in every auction house from Texas to Monaco. Evelyn didn't return to Avalon Heritage. Her point was made, her power undeniable. The press uncovered her past, chairwoman of Wren Holdings Strategic Investments, a titan who'd shaped the automotive industry from the shadows, her influence hidden behind a quiet demeanor. They called her the Wren Queen, her linen dress and flats now symbols of untouchable authority. Other auctions sent her invitations begging for partnerships, but she declined, her silence as powerful as Alexander's decrees. The collectors who'd mocked her were left to grapple with their shame, their status erased, their clout a fading echo. Evelyn's victory wasn't just a cancellation, it was a lesson etched into Texas's automotive history, a reminder that the plainest woman could wield the deadliest power, the audience's hearts pounding with pride. Avalon Heritage's culture of elitism crumbled. New management was installed, their respect for the Wrens absolute, their eyes on the showroom floor where Evelyn had redefined power. The auction's chandeliers, once a backdrop for privilege, now reflected its failure, the memory of Alexander's arrival a shadow over every event. Tracy was forced to publicly apologize in front of the staff, her voice shaking as she admitted her mistake, the footage spreading online to further humiliate her. The band collectors were shunned, their names erased from every bidder list, their status a relic of their downfall. The Wren's empire grew, their influence a beacon for every underdog who'd been laughed out of an auction, the audience cheering Evelyn's triumph as a testament to true strength. In the weeks that followed, Evelyn's name became a mantra in Texas's auction houses, her story a cautionary tale for every smug collector. The collectors who'd chanted for her ejection were ostracized, their reputations tarnished, their wealth meaningless against the Wren's reach. Avalon Heritage's bookings plummeted, its sponsors pulling out, its legacy a hollow boast. Evelyn was spotted at a charity event with Alexander. Her linen dress understated her presence, a quiet storm that commanded every room. She didn't need their lights, their champagne, or their approval. She'd come to test them, and they'd failed, their arrogance crushed in 9 seconds. The Wren Queen had no need for their world, she'd already conquered it, the audience screaming her name, their satisfaction a roar that echoed beyond the auction hall. Evelyn never needed to shout. She let the wolves feast until Alexander stormed the room and turned their world into rubble. By dawn, the woman they thought they humiliated became the name no one in the car world would ever forget. If you crave stories where the woman they spit on becomes the woman they kneel to, like, comment and subscribe. Share this if you believe in plain women running empires in silence.